Absolute Universe is definitely the hottest thing in all of comic books. We were destined to get some special issues, and it starts this week with Absolute Evil #1 from Ewing and Giuseppe Camuncoli, a $6 book promising to bring together all the villains of the Absolute Universe with tons of cameos and first appearances of Absolute characters like Hawkman and Green Arrow. Me personally, I don't think this is a very good comic book. It doesn't come close to being worth the $6 cover price. And in the indelible words of Ian Malcolm,
that is one big pile of shit.
I'm not recommending Absolute Evil #1, and I do think this is a black eye really on the Absolute Universe itself. Scott Snyder, the architect of the universe, did make some very curious choices about creators, and it really all starts with Al Ewing. Al Ewing's writing style does not lend itself to the Absolute Universe or anything that Scott Snyder, Kelly Thompson, Jason Aaron, or any of the other creators in this universe are trying to accomplish. He's incredibly boring. He's not very creative. And on top of that, he likes to drag everything out. You get no payoffs, and he likes to shove in lots of politics. And of course, we get the first appearance of Absolute Hawkman. And in the Absolute Universe, he was working for the House Un-American Activities Committee, which was a real thing back when McCarthy was trying to root out communism from America. And Hawkman has infiltrated the Communist Party. Doesn't exactly feel like something any Hawkman in any universe, in any timeline would ever really be a part about. That's not really who he is. And in most cases, he's not even an American or even an Earthling. But we do need to denigrate the straight white male hero. And spoiler alert, by the end of this book, Hawkman is amongst the most evil characters in the entire Absolute Universe because he fought against communism. So therefore, he must have been a bad guy the entire time. I hate this kind of bullshit. As I said, there was never a worse fit for the Absolute Universe than Al Ewing. I don't know what Scott Snyder was thinking, bringing this jabroni in for Absolute Green Lantern, and I certainly don't understand him giving the first big one-shot where you're going to have the most dialogue and interaction with Absolute Joker in any comic book yet. What an absolute misfire. And I feel terrible for the artist Giuseppe Camuncoli. Is he Clayman? Is he Nick Dragotta? Is he Greg Capullo? Is he Rafa Sandoval? Absolutely not. He's not quite there, but Giuseppe Camuncoli is actually a pretty darn good comic book artist. And here he's saddled with the script of people talking the entire time. There's one fight in the entire comic book, and it doesn't even happen on the pages. It happens off panel. And besides this moment of Green Arrow shoving an arrow into a desk, there is literally no action. There's action playing out on a TV, but it's just moments that have already played out in the other Absolute Universe books. And Giuseppe Camuncoli has a lot of strong points, but he's not really adept at making really boring scripts dynamic. So you're playing against all of his strengths in this comic book, and shockingly, it comes off as fairly flat and boring. So the score here does not reflect the capability or the artistry of Giuseppe Camuncoli. It reflects the fact that he had just a boring-ass script and nothing really to do. I'll give it 2.5 out of 5. And most of what this comic book is a cameo fest. It's a ton of first appearances. We did get Green Arrow. The only thing that he's really used to represent in the comic book is the Green Arrow in the Absolute Universe is essentially the Batman from our universe. He's got the Arrow Cave, he's got the computers, and he's basically acting out as our traditional Batman. And this book uses that to represent why the traditional Batman wouldn't work in the Absolute Universe. We also get the first appearance of Roy Harper. It's voice only. He's talking to Oliver Queen, so you don't see him, but he does call him Roy. There's also Jubal Slade, who's mentioned in here, which is a bad guy, I think, from Hard Traveling Heroes. We also see Sandman, Wildcat, Iron Monroe, and I believe those are all the first appearances in the comic book, which is really, I guess, the selling point. The reason that you're shelling out $6 besides maybe you'll get some more Absolute Joker. So there you go. It's spec value. There's a bunch of first appearances, most of which will never be important to the Absolute Universe itself. And if you're a Green Arrow fan, I think you're mostly going to be very disappointed. Certainly if you're a Sandman fan, you're going to be really disappointed in what Al Ewing and what the Absolute Universe has decided to do with these classic DC characters. I say, why put them in there if you're just going to ruin them for everything? We do get the bad guys together, led by Veronica Cale. I believe I saw her in an Absolute Wonder Woman issue. I don't think I've seen her in anything else, but this is certainly not her first appearance. We also get Hector Hammond, who's coming in from the Absolute Green Lantern book. We get Ra's al Ghul, who's coming in from the Absolute Superman book. We get Joker, who's coming in from the Absolute Batman book. And then the female version of Thawne, who's coming in from the Absolute Flash book. And they have this meeting that they need to work together because there are individuals inspiring hope, and that will work against their machine or their world vision of keeping everybody under their thumb. And they need to get together because they're more powerful than some of the characters they put down in the past, which included Sandman, Wildcat, and Iron Monroe. And they just talk about what they know about the characters. So there's really nothing new introduced when it comes to the way the rogues are looking at these new absolute heroes. It's just showing them on a TV screen and explaining what they've been doing. As if the customers who are already paying for Absolute Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Flash, and Martian Manhunter and all that stuff didn't already know that. So you're being represented information that is of no real value. Veronica Cale demands that they all need to get together. Of course, they don't start fighting each other. They don't slap each other in the face. They talk very strongly at each other with grim faces. As Hector Hammond says, "I don't need any help." And Thawne says, "Yeah, I don't think I need any help." But Ra's al Ghul's like, "No, we all need help." Setting up, I guess, these tribal rivalries on the Rogues Gallery. The most interesting thing, probably in the entire book, is when Joker decides to take the stage and multiple characters reinforce he doesn't laugh at anything, as if that's a reason not to trust the man. But he starts talking about the Higgs-Boson particle and all that kind of stuff. But in this universe, there's something even more powerful, and it's the Omega particle. And Joker and his scientists have discovered the Omega particle, and it is what powers this side of the universe. And now that they know how it works and that it exists, they can harness the power of the Omega particle to keep all those lowly people, in their places. And of course, Veronica Cale works for the government because America must be evil in this universe as well. And while this is happening, it's revealed that Absolute Brainiac and Mirror Master are able to view this through the glasses that Absolute Ra's al Ghul is wearing. And Brainiac realizes that there are these checks and balances on the team. For Veronica Cale, you've got Thawne. For Hector Hammond, you have Ra's al Ghul. But there's no opposite energy for Joker to keep him in check. It's then insinuated that Mirror Master is able to also see in other universes, and they realize that the opposite force is supposed to be Lex Luthor, but he's not a bad guy, and they decide to give him a call. And then we see the first appearance of Absolute Lex Luthor, and it looks like he lives on a ranch or something in Montana with his wife Dora and their children. When you see Dora, it's clear that that's Ann Dora, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me because she was from Lexor, not even Earth. But she's there, they're happy, they're in love. He never turned into a supervillain. Not sure if he's still significantly wealthy or whatever, but Absolute Brainiac needs to bring him into the fold to counter the Joker position amongst the bad guys. And by the end, it's revealed that they are the new Justice League. Veronica Cale, Hector Hammond, Ra's al Ghul, Joker, Thawne, Hawkman, I guess, because he's their private mercenary or something like that. And then they're going to bring in this Absolute Lex Luthor to the team. I will give the characterization on this book a 1 out of 5. Sure, the established characters are fine, but it's nothing new that we didn't already know. They're just now talking to each other. But everything else that was introduced as far as characterization when it comes to Hawkman, Green Arrow, Wildcat is wildly out of character for those characters. I didn't particularly enjoy it. It was quite boring. I give the plot an even lower score, a 0.5 out of 5. There literally is no plot. It's just people talking. There's essentially no action whatsoever. There's the formation of the Justice League essentially out of nowhere, and the reveal of Lex Luthor, but no real plans are made. The story isn't moved forward. This is just basically a filler comic book that they're charging you $6 for. I came into this comic book skeptical because it was Al Ewing. He doesn't really fit the Absolute Universe, and I maintain that stance. I don't think it's a very good comic book, really at all. He does his artist, Giuseppe Camuncoli, no favors with this comic book because it's so boring and dialogue and exposition heavy. The big cameos and first appearances almost across the board are an enormous disappointment or don't fit the characters whatsoever. I'll give this book a 3 out of 10. An enormous disappointment for what is the hottest thing in all of comic books today. I do not recommend you read this comic book. I think you'll end up being very, very disappointed unless you're just there for the Absolute Joker stuff. And then at least you get 4 or 5 pages of him talking and interacting with people, which is more than we've gotten really anywhere else. If you are looking for more comic book reviews, I do want to point out we do have the Hot or Not podcast every single Thursday on Thinking Critical Patreon and channel memberships. It's a 2.5 hour podcast reviewing all the new major books from Marvel, DC, independent comic books. Hope to see you there very, very soon.